Hi, KB here with the Color Grade Podcast. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for being here.
No, thank you so much for having me. So, Soul is just really heartwarming with an exceptionally relatable storyline. And while Joe is much like many of us, particularly in this pandemic, really just going through a rebirth of sorts and trying to make the most out of life, this is all through the lens of really Joe's spark, which is music. And so, Joe is such a gifted jazz musician and teacher. So, for you, Jamie, just talk about what iconic jazz musicians really inspired you when bringing Joe to life. And for Kemp and Pete, kind of the same question, like what musicians really inspired you on while creating this project?
Wow. Well, thank you for that question. I have an extensive background when it comes to jazz. My Sailors, Thelonious Monk, but I also had an opportunity to meet two incredible musicians, Mr. Herbie Hancock, Mr. Chick Corea. Now, I don't know if you know their story, but when they were like 18 years old, they get a call from a guy by the name of Miles Davis who says, "We hidden in Atlantic City." And what happened was that Miles Davis had just fired his whole group, call these young kids and say, "Come up and play." And they get there, no rehearsals or anything. Here's the sheet music, and the rest is history. And they went on to be some of our most prolific jazz musicians ever. Also, Popsicle Toes, Michael Franks, which as young black musicians as we was coming up, we was like, "You just do this dude right here, Michael Franks." Popsicle Toes is so dope is that we actually had a club in Dallas, Texas called Popsicle Toes because we love that type of music so much. And if you go on my Instagram, I'm playing, I forget the guy's name, I'm playing with this one cat and we're jazzing out. So having that background really made me bond with the character, made me understand what Joe is about. Jazz lives in the DNA of all of our music because it's improvisational. So that's what we all do. Even if you're hip hop, it's improvisational. It's not something that you can actually sort of teach. It's a feeling. So that being said, Joe's character, when he loses himself and gets into that zone, we've all been there. We've all been in those sessions where you catch a lick, you catch a vibe, and you play it for 25 minutes. If you look at even beyond that, look at any Parliament record. That was just a vibe. The album the maxi single would be 18 minutes long because they were just in that zone. So having that, like I said, that DNA, and then being with Kemp and Pete, cultivating it to where everything made sense and became animation. Because I remember when I first came in to read, I was doing facial expressions and all this, and they were like, "Jamie, we don't see you. we need the voice." And it was amazing, that process, when you say your lines, but then they go, "Oh, that's animation." And then to see it now, to see what you guys see, it was an incredible journey.
Yeah, cool. My all-time favorite pianist is Earl Father Hines. He's like considered the first, modern jazz musician, pianist rather. Oscar Peterson is great. I mean, I have a big long list of favorites, but I think on this film, the guy who really influenced us the most was Jon Batiste. He became kind of what Jamie is to the voice of Joe. John is the hands. He's like the music, and he played at places like this and still does, and influenced so much, not only the specifics of Joe, but the film in general and the culture, and brought so much knowledge of the history and musicality and the experience of being a musician. I mean, there were lines in the films we pulled basically just right from John's mouth. We asked him to describe what's it like, and it would end up in the movie.
Yeah, for me, I'm Gen X, so my son's name is Mingus. So Charles Mingus, John Coltrane, you know what I mean? Like all the hip hop, Herbie Hancock to me is first and foremost like the most sampled jazz artist in hip hop. So that's why it was important also, even in the music cues, to get artists like A Tribe Called Quest, and Erykah Badu, and a lot of neo soul artists. You'll hear them when you go into spaces like the tailor shop or the barber shop, because the idea is, if Dez the barber is close to Joe's age, in his mid 40s, he should be down with all of the 90s, and from Long Live the Cane to the End of the Native Tongues should be kind of his soundscape, which is all sampled by jazz anyway. So to me, jazz has always been like a fusion and kind of an influence for some of my favorite hip hop in my life. So
Yes. Well, thank you guys so much.